The big storyline, obviously, Swayman gets a shutout. I think it's his third of the season. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
An all-star, too. Jeremy Swayman is an all-star. He gets to... That's the perfect kind of guy to go to the all-star game, right? Young guy, first time. Whereas Oliver Bjorkstrand is like texting guys, hey, you want to go in my place?
Yes.
Can you please? The wife is angry. I'm angry. This just isn't working. But he gets a shutout. And then, obviously, he has played... 5 games in a row, 3 straight starts. One thing we were really wondering going into this stretch with Ullmark out, which it doesn't look like Ullmark's injury is severe. He's still listed as day-to-day, which is a good thing. One thing we were wondering is, what's Swayman going to look like playing all these games in a row? And so far, the early returns on it have been pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, he's been huge for this team, as he's been all year. But I think first of all, the Bruins are very lucky that it does seem like it's going to be maybe, a week or so with a guy like Ullmark. He's already was back on the ice on Saturday. Montgomery mentioned on Monday that Ullmark skated, so he's well on his way.
Wasn't as courageous as Connor Bedard skating though. Connor Bedard with the mask on and the fractured jaw. They went out there and shot some pucks. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I was worried for a second. That's courage.
Yeah,
braver than the troops.
Yes, crisis avoided in Chicago, but good to see Ullmark back out there. Considering the optics of what it looked like on Tuesday, I think a lot of people were like, well, shit, might have to swim in the rest of the way. So it doesn't seem to be the case. So the Bruins are very lucky there. But yeah, for Swayman, even if it's over this little stretch here, this is why you have 2 elite level goalies that, if one's banged up or one's in a, fallen into a bit of a rut, which really hasn't been the case this year, you do have the luxury of turning to a guy and giving him, 4 or 5 starts in a row if needed. And so far, Swayman's been up to the task. And Montgomery kind of mentioned after Monday's game that, Swayman had a really strong year last year, had made a lot of huge strides, but he thinks he's seen a completely different goalie this year in terms of just how competitive, but like composed in terms of, not playing the puck, letting the play kind of come to him. And he's got all the mechanics or whatever goalie Bob kind of can delve into a lot more eloquently than me about just how, composed he's been in net. And I think you've seen it this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's looked a lot better. I think that was one prediction that I personally had before the season. Hey, he's going to be a lot better he's going to take strides in his game, and he has. So got to give myself a pat on the back for that. Sometimes you got to praise yourself. It's not the worst thing in the world.
The NFL season is wrapping up, and there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
But some of that motivation might be coming from what happened over the offseason. And I think it was in St. Louis, when he was asked about being named an all-star. This is courtesy of Scott McLaughlin. Quote, after dealing with what I did this summer with arbitration, hearing things that a player should never hear, it feels pretty special to be in this situation. Now, I know he talked on Monday about those comments, and clearly it hit him, which makes sense. I mean, arbitration sucks. Arbitration is, for those who don't know, it's where you come to the table with what you think you're worth, and you pitch your case, and the team comes to the table with what they think you're worth, and it's usually less, and they usually have to say some things about you that are not something you would normally say about someone, like, he's not great playing games in a row, so that's, $500,000 off, and then he's not good in this, so that's another, million, and I think he took it to heart, but I think it seems like, well, again, we'll see what happens when they go back to the negotiating table at the end of the season. But it does seem like it's turned into motivation. It's not hatred towards the team. At least right now, it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, no. Again, I think people hear those comments and they were kind of, I don't know, off the cuff. Or it definitely was surprising when you just hear it, especially like in the scrum of like, it's the layup, like the Kobe to Shaq alley-oop of like, all right, you're an all-star, how's it feel? Him to like mention it like as part of that thing, I think probably catches some people off guard. But with that being said, these are still pro athletes for, I think, especially in this market, when you have heard of a guy, Tom Brady, and how he deals with criticism and chip on his shoulder and carrying that with you. I'm sure like every other person on this planet who watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan during COVID, and how a guy like him, Jordan is wired, of like these people who will take any slight as motivation and channel it positively, which is something that, I wrote a story on Monday, like a staple of a Jeremy Swayman scrum is, I think he says, you can't buy experience at Target, which I believe is a line from Red Gendron, the late Red Gendron, who was his coach at Maine. But I think that's something that Swayman takes to heart, of embracing the good and the bad, enjoy, taking that experience and building off of it, whether it be a great game in net, a Game 7 loss, dealing with arbitration, all that kind of shit that comes with it, and kind of just building that as part of your journey and using it as motivation. Like the same thing, like Swayman, if you mentioned Game 7 this season, he'll talk all about like how that was the worst feeling in the world and never want to have that feeling again. Like same thing with arbitration, doesn't want to feel that again. So how do most of these pro athletes channel that? It's by using it as motivation. I think, again, we'll see what happens when the time comes to negotiate a new contract. You have to imagine it's part of the business. The Bruins already had no cap space, so what are you going to do necessarily in that situation? They did give him a solid by giving him a 1-year deal when they could have locked him into 2 years for it, which probably would have struck another nerve there. So he's due for a big contract. So I think the Bruins are hoping you can overlook kind of the tough conversations you have to deal with during arbitration to get to that finish line for this new contract. But yeah, I mean, for someone like Swayman, like that, like every athlete who is fueled a path to, professional sports through motivation and channeling all that into their prep work on and off the ice, doesn't really come as much of a surprise to me in terms of just the big picture, the implications of his comments.
Yeah, and I can confirm you cannot buy experience at Target. That's true.
We didn't sell experience. Someone wasn't like at the self-check counter doing that. No. They didn't They didn't have like a red polo shirt. They were like trying to scan, like, I want to work at Target. I want the Target experience. And you're like, no, please stop.
Don't do that. You couldn't get experience off like the in aisle 6 and go up and try to buy it. You couldn't do that.
Gotcha.
Maybe we need to do that. Maybe we need to get like a box just as experience on it, and whatever experience you need, it just like comes over you. And it's a lot of money though. We're gonna sell it for a lot and make a lot of money off it. I agree with you though. I think Swayman has clearly channeled that motivation well, just in terms of playing a lot better. And just, I mean, I remember even last year after Game 7, how he took it and how he was like, I stayed here all summer and, trained and this and that. And I think he clearly wants to be here, but I think there's a catch. I think there's a little catch to wanting to be here. And it's something that Bruins fans and the Bruins front office has not been used to in a while.